Hello there. I'm the old principal, and this is 老校长的节目. Okay, this is number 77, George Pickett's Friend. Now, if you see this picture over here, this is actually Abraham Lincoln. This is a very old picture, extremely old picture. Obviously, yeah, you can see that the picture is not too good. So this is a real picture of George Lincoln, copy of a real picture, okay? And George Pickett is the name of a person, okay? And he was a friend of Abraham Lincoln, or you can say, in this story, Abraham Lincoln was a friend of George Pickett. Okay? So now you know what we're talking about. We're talking about something that comes from about 150 years ago, 151 years ago, 150. Let's say 150 years ago. Whoa, that's a long time ago. And the picture, not too bad for 150 years. Okay? So, we've got to have a storyteller. Can I have my storyteller? Storyteller. Here we are. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
For George Pickett's Friend.
Right.
Okay.
George Pickett had known Abraham Lincoln in Illinois years before Lincoln became President of the United States. When the American Civil War began, Pickett joined the Southern Army. He was a brave and able soldier, and as the war continued, he became one of the great generals of the Confederacy. Toward the close of the war, a large part of the South had fallen into possession of the Union Army. Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy, was itself overrun by Union troops. It was at this time that President Lincoln chose to call at General Pickett's Virginia home. The general's wife tells the story in her own words. With my baby on my arm, I answered the knock, opened the door, and looked up at a tall, gaunt, sad-faced man in ill-fitting clothes, who, with the accent of the North, asked, "Is this George Pickett's home?" With all the courage and dignity I could muster, I replied, "Yes, and I am his wife, and this is his baby." "I am Abraham Lincoln." "The President!" I gasped. I had never seen him, but I knew the intense love and reverence with which my soldier always spoke of him. The stranger shook his head and replied, "No, Abraham Lincoln, George's old friend." The baby pushed away from me and reached out his hands to Mr. Lincoln, who took him in his arms. As he did so, an expression of rapt, almost divine tenderness and love lighted up the sad face. It was a look that I had never seen on any other face. The baby opened his mouth wide and insisted on giving his father's friend a dewy kiss. As Mr. Lincoln gave the little one back to me, he said, "Tell your father, the rascal, that I forgive him for the sake of your bright eyes."
That's a nice story. And one of the things, like I have mentioned before, in several of the Abraham Lincoln stories, is that you have a lot of these little tiny vignettes or stories that tell us a little bit about the character of Abraham Lincoln. So with that, you can sit down for a while.
Sure.
Don't run away. Okay. Now we're looking at number 77, George Pickett's Friend. Okay, here we go. George Pickett had known Abraham Lincoln in Illinois. In one of the programs I said I thought it was Iowa. It was Illinois. Okay? 美国的 Illinois 州 ，OK， 他们可以说是老朋友。Okay, had known Abraham Lincoln years before. Now, keep in mind that when it says years, 年, okay, and that 年 is 多数. But sometimes when we say years, we simply mean many years. Okay, so many years 以前. Okay, many years before Lincoln became president of the United States. So, of course, we're talking about Lincoln 总统. But before he became president, they had been friends. Many years before, they had been friends in Illinois. Going on. When the American Civil War began, okay, American Civil War. Of course, Civil War is 内战, okay. Sometimes we say 南北内战, okay, or 南北战争, the war between the North and the South, okay. Before the Civil War began, Pickett, or when it began, Pickett joined the Southern Army. Okay, now, keep in mind that Lincoln is president of the Northern Army. Well, he's president of America. 他是美国总统, okay? Okay. Pickett now has joined the 参与南方军队. Going on. He was a brave and able soldier. Now, brave is 勇敢, 有勇气的. And able, sometimes we say capable, 很有能力, 很会做事. And as the war continued, 这个战争继续的时候, he became, 就变为这个 Confederacy。Confederacy 是这个南方的这个军队的. So Confederacy means a group of states. 他们有些州，他们就离开美国的. Okay? He became a great general. 变成一个很伟大也。变成一个非常有名的一个将军. Okay, moving on. Okay, toward the close of the war, a large part of the South, 快到结束的时候，这个南方很大片已经被这个军队，北方军队占领 ，OK， 占领呢 ，OK， fallen into possession of the Union Army. Union Army 是北方军队 ，OK。or 联合军队. Going on. Richmond, Virginia. Okay? Virginia is, in fact, Richmond, Virginia 是这个南方的这个首都. Okay? Richmond, Virginia. Virginia 是美国的一个州. Richmond 是一个城市. Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy. Capital is the他们的首都 was itself overrun by the Union Army. Overrun means 也是被占领的 ，OK， 也是被占领的啊。Overrun Sometimes when we use the word overrun, it means that they have actually gone over. And in a war, it means to 被占领的 okay, by the Union Army, by 这个北方军队. Going on, it was at this time, 就是这个时候 President Lincoln 总统他就 chose, I mean 做了决定. In this case, to choose means 做决定. To call at General Pickett's Virginia home. Call. What does that mean? Of course, we usually think of call as 打电话, right? But in this case, to call means 去拜访. 去拜访这个 General Pickett 将军的 Virginia home. So, what do we know? Virginia 州已经被他们占领了。那么，所以这个林肯总统就去拜访这个 Pickett's home. Okay. The general's wife, 这个 Pickett 将军的太太 tells us the story. 这个是一个真正的故事，你可以上网可以看，你也可以看书。这个真正的故事，他太太就写这个以下的这个故事。Okay. With my baby on my arm. Now, we don't usually say it this way. We say with the baby in my arms. Okay? But 150 years ago, the English was just a little bit different. And so he said, with the baby on my arm. So she's holding a baby. Okay? I answered the knock. So 他就叩门. Okay, and I answered the knock means knock. It means that I opened the door. Okay, I opened the door. Okay, and opened the door, and next looked up at a tall, gaunt, sad-faced man. Okay, he was tall. Gaunt. You know what gaunt is? Gaunt means very 瘦，很瘦，不是很胖，很瘦。Okay? Actually, the funny thing is, you know, all the pictures of Lincoln, most of the pictures of Lincoln, he had 留胡子. Why did he have a beard? Well, the same reason why I have a beard. Well, what's the 同样？为什么我留胡子？ Because if I don't have a beard, 我也看起来 gaunt. You know what that means? I look too skinny. I look too thin. So here was Lincoln. Lincoln was tall. He was gaunt and sad-faced. Okay, 很忧愁的，看起来 very sad, 很难过的。Okay, so in ill-fitting clothes, what does that mean? Like the clothes don't fit. He was thin, so probably his clothes were too big. Okay, ill-fitting. Ill-fitting. Do we use this word nowadays? We don't usually use ill-fitting, but 150 years ago they did. Ill-fitting just means the clothes did not fit. Today we just say the clothes didn't fit real well. Who, with the accent of the north, 他的口音是有北方的口音啊。 in America, we all speak English. Except in different parts of America, we tend to have different accents. 好像我们的口音就不一样。For instance, I have a sister. 我有一个妹妹，她住在德州。We grew up in the same home. We grew up in the same home. But she sounds like a Southerner. Okay, that's Janet. My sister Janet. And I sound like a Northerner. Actually, a West Coast person. Okay? Okay, so the man who was knocking on the door, had the accent of the North going on. The man said, "Is this George Pickett's home? Is this George Pickett's home?" Going on. With all the courage, okay? See, she doesn't know who this is. She does not know who it is. So she said, with all the courage and dignity, maybe I better check them. What does the word dignity mean? 尊严. Oh, dignity. Courage, 勇气, and dignity, 尊严. I could muster. What does muster? That means to pull up from inside of you. 从这个里面拿出来. Okay? Okay? I replied, yes. I am his wife. 那是这个是 George Pickett 的家。我就是他的妻子。And this is his baby. 这个是他的小孩子。Okay? Going on. And then the tall, gaunt, sad-looking man said, I am Abraham Lincoln. 我就是林肯. Okay? That's all he said. And then I gasped. Okay? Now, what does it mean to gasp? What do you say? 倒吸一口凉气. Just like that. I gasped. The president. Okay? Now she explains something that's very important. I had never seen him. 我从来没有见过他. But I knew the intense love and reverence with which my soldier, okay, in this case, my soldier 就是我的老公啊，老公. She calls him my soldier. 当然soldier is 军队的一个人. But in this case, you could just say 我的老公. I knew the intense, 这个崇高的爱和 reverence, 敬佩, okay, which my husband always spoke of him. So even though they were on opposite sides, 他们是对立, nevertheless, George Pickett highly reverenced, 非常非常敬佩这个林肯总统. Okay? Going on. The stranger shook his head. 那就是 stranger, 这陌生人就是 Lincoln, right? Okay? He replied, no. No. Abraham Lincoln, George's 老朋友. Okay? He would not say, yes, I am the president of the United States. 我 他根本就没有说我是美国总统林肯。He just said, I am George's 老朋友. Going on. The baby pushed away. Okay, now, so the baby in her arms, okay, and he pushes away and reached out his hands to Mr. Lincoln, who took him in his arms. And then, of course, Lincoln took the baby and took him in his arms. Going on. As he did so, an expression, 他的表情啊, okay, of rapt means intense interest, and几乎 almost divine 神圣的温柔和爱 lighted up his sad face. Again, here is a very sad person. 很难过。那时候做总统非常难过。But suddenly, 他的表情就变了。Okay? 表情就变了。And it lighted up. It's just like his face changed colors almost. It's just like, kind of a happy, but it's a divine tenderness, 很神圣的温柔和爱. So you can see that Lincoln 也是蛮敬佩这个 George Pickett. Okay, going on. It was a look I have never seen on any other face. 我从来没有看到一个人是有这种的样子呢，这种的这个表情。Going on. The baby opened his mouth wide. 他就打开他的口，他的嘴唇啊。And insisted 这个强的一定要 insisted on giving his father's friend 给他爸爸的朋友what a dewy kiss. Now trust me, we don't use this way of describing dewy. Dewy means 满有这个口水的亲吻啊，这个亲吻啊。So, but with all sorts of 这个口水。You know how children are. That's the way children are. They don't care. They say you just give him a kiss. Okay, going on. As Mr. Lincoln gave the little one 这个小孩子啊，这个小孩子就把孩子还给他to me 给妈妈的时候 he said, okay, now remember, now he's talking to the little tiny baby. He's talking to the little tiny baby. He's not talking to the mother. He's not talking to George Pickett's wife, himself. He is talking to the baby. And here's what he said. Tell your father. 当然了，这个小孩子没办法这样说了 but he still wanted to say it. Tell your father, 你告诉你的爸爸 the rascal. Okay? Well, what is a rascal? 捣蛋鬼 A rascal. But sometimes, even though 捣蛋鬼是坏的意思有时候呢也有负面也有正面的 It's not so bad. When you say tell him the rascal, 是有一点点这个感情 在里面呢。So anyway, you tell your father, the rascal, 那你爸爸是一个 rascal 捣蛋鬼啊 that I forgive him. 我宽恕他 ，OK？ 因为 ，OK？ 因为你的 bright， 因为你的明亮的眼睛。Wow, what a story, huh? And this is a real story from history. We don't have much time, but maybe you can come out here for a minute. At least people can see you for a minute. And so, you had children. When children are in our arms, people tend to change.
That's true.
Okay? When we, I think many times, even when we came to China many, many years ago, that if we gave our children or let them hold our children, what happened?
So they love them. And
Yeah, they were very happy and they changed their attitude was very happy, wasn't it?
yes.
Okay. Okay, well, we're running out of time, but it's been fun to share this little story about Abraham Lincoln. Okay, what do we got here? We got an email address, Daniel the teacher, the old principal, 老校长 at gmail.com. 我们也可以你也可以看我们的网站 www.theoldprinciple.org www.theoldprinciple.org. We've had fun telling you this story today and look forward to seeing you next time.